Hey, welcome back to Inside Oakland County. I'm John Scott. When we think of public safety, the first thing that comes to mind are our first responders, like the police and fire departments. There is one other department in Oakland County government that is as important, if not more important, than the departments I just mentioned. I'm talking about the Oakland County Health Department. You know, believe it or not, the people working in our county health department are working hard every day to protect the people living and visiting Oakland County. And joining me today is George Miller. George is the Director of Health and Human Services in Oakland County. Hey George, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Commissioner Scott. Appreciate you having me here.
I'm really glad that you're here.
Absolutely.
And the health department's a major part of the county. And I think to better understand what the health department does, could you give us the 30,000 foot looking down idea of just what it is we have for our health department? Because I know your tentacles go a long ways.
Absolutely. I think probably the easiest way to look at it is to understand the three units, the major units that we have. First unit that gets out there and really talks to people about the prevention piece is the prevention unit. Talking about eating right, taking care of yourself, taking care of your loved ones, planning for the future as you're getting older, exercising, all those kinds of things. Because with good prevention, then the public's health is in better shape as well. The next unit is the immunization and clinic unit, where we try to make sure that people get the right vaccinations that they need. Whether it be a flu vaccine, whether it be vaccination for kids, the typical kid vaccinations. And then the third unit is the environmental health unit, which a lot of people don't realize how busy we are with that. You do, because you're on the Sanitary Code of Appeal Board, which we appreciate. But talking about restaurant inspections, we have 4,400 restaurants that we have to inspect twice a year. Probably the largest in the state of Michigan at this point in time, as a matter of fact, as well as dealing with wells and septics. And again, people don't realize how many we have. We've got over 80,000 septic systems in Oakland County and over 100,000 wells.
I know. We do have a lot of that, and we do see them. Touch just briefly on that a little bit for you. You have a house, you've been there for a long time, the septic tank fails, you now have to do something different, and you have to do what's called an engineered field, which costs a lot more money. It still doesn't meet our code. That's when you come to my committee, the Sanitary Code Appeal, and we look at it and say it's 100 times better than what you had. Still doesn't meet the code, but that's why they come to us, is so we can approve that. So
right, you're really the safeguarders to protect the environment. We don't want to have a conduit directly to the watersheds or to the lakes or to the wetlands. And so as a result of that, some of these systems that you are recommending be put in are the best avenues that we can to do prevention, and has the best capability of keeping those things out of our wetlands.
Right. And while we talk about that, the next thing, we're going to talk a little about food service, because I know we inspect them, and every now and then you'll have one that has to end up at our board, but normally we don't get there. Talk a little bit about what we do and how we work so that they don't have to come to us, and that the ones that we finally do see in the Food Service Appeal Board, how they ended up there. So tell us just a little bit about that.
Absolutely. Well, for a long time now, we've really seen ourselves as more than just an enforcement agency. We really are an educational agency. We've got to be able to educate these restaurants on the various laws and the various changes that occur, and even in some of the practices that occur. So Mr. Patterson, the county executive, has been very adamant that we don't want to put people out of business. We want businesses to thrive in Oakland County. But we also have to be concerned about the health of our citizens and anyone that's visiting. So we'll go into a restaurant, as I said, at least 2 times a year, sometimes more if they've got some violations. And that reason is to, again, educate them on what the violation is, what the dangers are because of the violation with regards to public health, and then come back to make sure that not only they've made the corrections they need to make, but that they have an understanding of why those corrections were made at the time.
Right. And that's gone a long way to really helping out our restaurant owners and the managers throughout the county. And once again, we're protecting the people and the safety. And speaking of the safety, right now it's flu season.
Correct.
And I know we're doing some flu shots, we're doing things. Tell us, what we're doing, and then the importance of getting the shot.
Well, the flu vaccine, which is done yearly, is a very important vaccine for many, many people. What we like to see is a bulk or a good portion of the county get it, because then we have what we classify as herd immunity, where more people are vaccinated, and then the spread of whatever virus is out there isn't as rampant as it has been in the past when we didn't have these types of vaccines. No one wants to be sick, no one wants to lose productivity, and no one wants their immune system compromised. And so by getting the flu shot on an annual basis, whether you're an adult, whether you're a senior, or whether you're a young person, is extremely important to keep your immune system functioning strongly and moving forward. And there's various vaccines that we have. People say, well, I had it last year, why doesn't it last? Well, probably the best answer is there's different strains every year. And the CDC and the World Health Organization all study that to make sure that whatever the ingredients are that are in that vaccine are protecting from what they're seeing coming about. And so you've got the regular vaccines for people that have difficulties with breathing, whether it's asthma, emphysema, or immune compromise. We have pneumonia shots. As I'm sure you've mentioned to your listeners in the past, we've even got Zostervac shots now for people that are concerned about shingles, that have had chicken pox in the past. And so that, on top of all the immunizations that are important to offer. And one thing I want to say is that public health is really proud to have a tremendous amount of partners in the community, including many of the pharmacies that are now providing those flu shots. We're not in a competition to see if we can do all the business. We want to get public health out there to where the citizens are comfortable and where they want to meet and greet that particular service. And so whether it be your physician that does it, whether it be a pharmacy that does it, or whether it be the health division, we just want to make sure you get it.
Right. I remember several years ago there was a concern there was not enough vaccine.
Correct.
Yet we were pretty good shape at the county. Where are we on that right now? Do we have, how is our supply, and where do people come to get a shot if they want to come to the county?
Actually, we're still with the Minnesota Multipurpose Agency, which is a variety of different states that have come into this agreement, if you will. And as a result of that, we can order our vaccine in January to make sure that it arrives to us sometime in September or October at the latest. Again, this year we have ample supply. Now, I noticed that some of the physicians are running out already, but it's because they are not a part of that pack, if you will. But again, there seems to be, for this year, ample supply. One of the biggest problems that we have in this country with regards to vaccine production is that most of the vaccine producers have moved out of this country because of the tort law. And they've gone to other countries to produce these vaccines, and so we're somewhat at their mercy for when they're going to get delivered and when they're going to be provided to us. Somewhat of a scare was the H1N1, for instance, when they needed that produced just like that and quickly so we could get more people vaccinated. Well, that particular vaccine was being produced in France, and France was making sure first that they had their own country protected and then moving it on to other countries afterwards. So we're really taking a look at that with the CDC and with DHS in Washington as well to try and make sure that that gets changed in the future.
Okay, so people would come, they would visit. We have two locations, right?
We do.
When we do shots, we do them up at, well, you tell us.
At the Pontiac facility at the main campus at 1200 North Telegraph. Our health division is there at Building 34 East, and we also have a location down in Southfield at Catalpa, which is 11.5 mile, and Greenfield Road. And so we've got two great locations. We've been able to move more people in and through this year than we have in the past. Our numbers have already exceeded expectations over the last 10 years. And so really people have really taken that education and that prevention piece seriously, and we're very pleased about that.
And if I'm not mistaken, I think, is it what, Medicare, it's no
Medicare covers it.
cost?
There's a $5 administration fee is all, and Medicaid is the same way, and if you've got insurance that covers that type of a vaccine, we'll accept that now also as well.
Okay.
Otherwise, if you can't, the cost is $20 and $5 more for the administration fee, so it's a $25 fee. We're still the best game in town.
Yeah, it is a good game. And you know, talking about the influenzas, the flu, you mentioned H1N1, I know our department is also preparing to react to pandemic type situations. I mean, it wasn't long ago we did I remember the swine flu.
Correct.
Back in the 70s when we were all showing up getting these shots. And then of course the next one everybody's getting concerned with was the avian flu, if I'm not mistaken.
That's correct. Also known as the bird flu.
The bird flu, correct. Yeah. I had a guy, actually, he was so afraid that we were going to have a pandemic, he was preparing his whole house to be self-sufficient so that in case the water supply went down or whatever, he would still have it.
Excellent.
And, he was preparing for it. But really, that's a little more than probably has to be done. How do we prepare for these things? What does the health department do?
Well, I think you've labeled some of the things that we try to look forward and see in the crystal ball, if you will, in trying to prepare. But what we did a number of years ago, based on some of those concerns for pandemic, H1N1, bird flu. Everybody thought for sure that with the geese and the population that comes from Canada and comes over the Antarctica and other parts of that the Canadian areas, that we would be having it within the last probably 3 or 4 years. It didn't occur the way that we did, but in order to prepare for that, we started to develop things like school-based pandemic planning, community-based pandemic planning, just to get people thinking about what would you need if in fact people were saying shelter in place and don't go out for a number of days while we let this thing sort of fester and get off to the sides. And so we talked about a gallon of water per day per person to kind of store away for maybe a 3 or 4 day. Getting your medication prescriptions filled for a 90-day prescription rather than just a 30-day prescription. Making sure that you've got some non-perishable items in the basement that you can rely on for food sources, not because we have a concern that their stores are not going to be able to resupply or get food, but because of what typically happens when these things occur, and that there's a panic and everybody goes to the store on the same day and depletes the shelves quickly. You don't want to be caught in that particular predicament. And so we started talking about those types of pandemic planning things, and Oakland County got recognized actually by both the CDC and NACO, National Association for Counties, gave us awards for the pandemic planning that we did specifically for the school pandemic planning. So we still continue to talk about it because of everything that seems to be emerging. You'll probably remember West Nile virus.
Right. Oh yes,
how quickly that spread.
Yes.
How quickly that spread from New York all the way to California was alarming. How quickly that spread. But because we've become such world travelers, and that we can get to the other side of the world in 13 hours, we've got to be prepared for these things. We can't bury our heads in the sand.
Right. And of course now the big one is the what do you call it? The disease of the month or whatever.
Disease of the month club.
Yeah. The press jumps on it all the time and gets everybody in a big panic mode. And we're talking about the Ebola situation.
Correct.
I was just talking to the fire chief, Jay Wiseman here in West Bloomfield, and he says, you know, everybody gets all concerned about that. He says, but I think Kim Kardashian's had more husbands than we've had people get the disease in the United States. But yet you had to do stuff to prepare for that should something happen, and we work then with all the cities, villages, and townships within the township. Tell me, what do we do? How do we work with those guys?
Well, that's why it's such a great segue into public safety, because public health in this regard is trying to deal with public safety. Unfortunately, Ebola is a scary thing because it's tied to a viral hemorrhagic fever. And when you think of a viral hemorrhagic fever, you think of somebody very, very ill. But you have to remember, first of all, that Ebola was discovered back in 1976 in West Africa. So it's been around for a long time. What's unfortunately happened over there is that it's come from the bush areas now into the cities of that jurisdiction. And as a result of that, we've seen more people unfortunately become infected. We also know, however, that there isn't a trust in the government over there. There isn't a trust in medical over there. So these people hide instead of going and seeking the care that they need. And that's something that's going to have to be changed if we're going to combat that aggressively and effectively over there. But yes, we had the one gentleman come back, and unfortunately he was sent to an urgent clinic, and the urgent clinic sent him home even though he was symptomatic. By the time he got to the Texas hospital, he was definitely in dire straits. We learned a lot of things. The 2 nurses that ended up unfortunately catching Ebola, we learned that the way that they took off their PPE was probably problematic. They didn't even have enough PPE on, which is protective gear that they wear.
Sure.
And so you learn from those mistakes and you move forward. And that's what we're trying to do here in Oakland County is, first of all, we're trying to work with our hospital partners, who we meet with monthly, by the way, to make sure that the emerging things are talked about. We also meet with our fire and our EMS people to make sure that the equipment that they have, that they understand they need to take the extra precautions, as well as the police departments. It's public safety that we want. But I think one of the things that you sort of highlighted that's key is that let's not blow this out of proportion. This isn't something that everybody's going to be concerned with getting. We already know that the gentleman that died that originally had it here in the United States, none of his family members got it. The 2 nurses have been the only ones that have gotten it of all the people that have been treating that situation. And so we know that as in the United States, with the health care that we have and the precautionary measures and the information we've learned, we're in a better place. We want to continue to be that. And we want to make sure Oakland County is as prepared as it can be in case that it were, God forbid, to ever happen.
Right. So don't worry, don't panic.
Correct.
It's not here. It's not bad. What else we want to talk about for the health department? You've got a lot of good things going on.
Well, we're actually working with a number of the schools and talking about this new virus that's hitting kids, the enterovirus, which has been around, by the way, for years, but it seems to be hitting kids pretty hard this year. And so any young person that's got some asthma problems or some breathing problems, we want to make sure that they're getting the vaccine, first of all, the flu vaccine, but not to ignore symptoms if those kids are starting to show symptoms of having a struggle with breathing, is to get into the doctor and try to make sure that that gets under control as well. We're continuing to do a huge prevention message. One of the biggest ones, and we've been working with Judge Jody Debreck-Switalski from Waterford, is prescription drug abuse.
Yes.
The number of young people that are stealing prescription drugs and getting involved with prescription drugs and leading to abuse is getting to be an emerging epidemic, to be perfectly honest with you. So you're going to start seeing bus ads that say, I could be taking prescriptions from your medicine cabinet. Be aware. We're just making moms and dads, grandmothers and grandfathers aware of the fact that kids are looking for this thing. There's something called a farm party, a PHARM party, where they take and steal medications from aunts, uncles, parents, medicine cabinets. They pour it into a bowl and they all take 2 of whatever they picked out of there. The danger of it is the narcotics and getting addicted to the narcotics. Once you go on the street to buy Oxycontin or Vicodin, the druggies don't have that. It's too expensive. And so they switch you over to a heroin.
Right.
And when you get switched over to heroin, we all know what the effects and the horrible things that can occur with that. So
we've been losing a lot of young people. I live in Waterford, a subdivision not far from me. They've had several. And it all started off with the kids either being given narcotics like an Oxycontin,
right,
and then it's so expensive, they're off the insurance, and they turn to heroin. Parents are doing their best. They're getting them into treatment. Unfortunately, the kid gets out of treatment. Next thing you know, he's back with his friends, and he's taking it again, and in higher doses, or maybe, and they're overdosing, and we're getting a lot of that. It's just sad to see kids in their early 20s and stuff overdosing and a good life gone.
And this is not an inner city problem. I want to stress that. This is an urban-rural community problem that people didn't think would ever occur. But unfortunately, it's manifested itself, as I said, to being almost an emerging epidemic.
Right. Hey, I want to go back. You mentioned that the new influenza type going on with the kids in the schools. And I know we've got a lot of parents watching. What should they be watching for in their children as to the symptoms and to know that they should have to do something a little faster?
Again, it'll be a high fever, but the biggest thing that also starts to occur is a struggle with breathing. And so anyone who doesn't have a child that's usually an asthmatic or having that type of difficulty, that's how you would identify it as being something that you want to get to the doctor sooner than later. And again, for most people, it's treatable. The only death that we've seen actually in the United States is a young person who was also immune compromised, was battling cancer at the time. And so they had a lot of complications attached to that. But no one wants to see a child in particular struggle and be sick for any long period of time. And so when there's preventative ways to deal with that, or when you know that there's medication or treatment available, you really want to seek that out as soon as you can.
That's good, because the parents have to watch for the symptoms. And once it gets into the schools, every kid touches everything, and the hand washing isn't there. And pretty soon it's spread, and it comes into your house and into the next house. I always used to kid in our office where I work, where my day job is. Most everybody there now, their children have grown, but when they were all little ones, it seemed like we were always getting sick. We couldn't stay healthy at all, and fortunately now everything's going good. So,
but I want to give a plug for schools, because I want to say that schools have been great sentinels for us in the last couple of years in particular.
Okay.
We have a portal that they dial into every day, and they kind of let us know what they're seeing in their school and what's going on. And based on that, we can tell whether we're starting to see like a norovirus outbreak or whether we're starting to see a flu-like outbreak. And they're always communicating with us, asking us what types of things to do. The other thing I think they're doing a fabulous job on is really pushing the hand washing piece with the education in the schools. So making sure that kids are going to the restroom to wash their hands and sanitize their hands before they're going to eat, because that's when they're putting all that stuff in their mouth, and that's when the spread will occur. You and I both know kindergartens, preschool, and some of the other ones are in there with the crayons and they're sucking on them and they're passing around. You can't do anything about that. But when you start to talk about the education of personal hygiene, that's where we want to be.
Well, talking about hand wash, what about these sanitizers? I hear good, bad, in between. What's the...
And I think the place that I would be comfortable at is what you just said, the in-between. There are definitely opportunities where you don't have the warm soap and water to be able to do.
Right.
We always want people to use warm soap and water and wash their hands in a fashion where they're literally singing themselves, either quietly or out loud, the happy birthday song twice.
I've heard that.
And it's
Twice now?
Twice.
Okay,
It's longer than
once.
you think it is. And then drying them thoroughly, either with a blow dryer or with the paper towels. And then using the paper towels to open the door when possible and throw them out just as you're exiting. But going back to the hand sanitizer, as long as it's got 99% base of alcohol in it, the hand sanitizer is a great thing in between or for a place where you don't have the opportunity to wash your hands. And so we would stress that with people.
Yeah, we would use it. One of our things, our Kegel Harbor Optimist Club gets into charitable gaming, and of course you're selling chips and handling money, and we were going through that hand sanitizer pretty good just so that we wouldn't get that. So, good. So things are good at the health department right now.
They really are.
Get things going there. George, anything else we want to highlight with the health department and what's going on?
Well, just that, again, we really have been stressing that we want Oakland County to be a healthy place to live, to work, and to recreate. And by all these new partnerships that we've developed, we really think that through pushing public health out to the community and the community supporting it, those types of things are happening.
Hey, George, thanks again for joining us out here. It's been great. You gave us a lot of great information, and we do appreciate that.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you. And as always, you can contact me at scottj@oakgov.com. I'm Oakland County Commissioner John Scott, and thanks once again for watching Inside Oakland County. Now get out there and enjoy yourselves.